Welcome back to the workshop, everyone. Just looking at this new workbench I've built over the past couple of weeks. So as I mentioned in the walk around video, it has a steel frame, and the reason I chose to use the steel frame was because I got it and it was cheap. That bench there, the steel frame for this bench and the steel frame for this bench, which is my assembly bench, which did have a metal top on. Both of them, I think, cost me, it was either £10 or £20 at auction, and they were so cheap. It's a no-brainer. And that frame there is so heavy, I'm never going to push it around the workshop. That's why I chose to use that bench to make my new workbench out of, simply because I've got it and it's cost me next to nothing. So I've also chosen to use Record 52.5 quick release vices. This one in particular I think is quite old, quite early on in the production. And unlike a lot of people, I have mine mounted so that there's no projection here. I like my work to sit flat against the apron. I do a lot of edge planing for pieces, so I want that sat in the vice, gripped here on a support at the far end. And the only way that works is if the piece is sat tight and fully supported against the apron. I don't like them front mounted forwards of the apron. It just doesn't work for me. I've tried it, I really don't like it. So hence I mount them like I've mounted this one with the vice behind the apron. And in this case, obviously it has had to be supported, fully supported with blocks and bearers. So I'm just looking at what I'm doing. I'm going to need to add a couple of support blocks in here, just because this is I've got quite a bit of overhang this side of the legs. But yeah, other than that, I've got nice deep aprons. So 250mm boards that rough sawn. They've come out around 145mm each. 142 maybe, but yeah, nice deep apron. Only a 45mm thick top, 46mm thick top, because that's all I really need. But what I did was I've put bearers underneath the bench at plenty of interval. I think they're on 500mm centres. So at the top now, there's absolutely no bounce on the top whatsoever. As you can see, big angle lines that they're sitting on, and it is quite chunky steel. So there's no way that bench is ever going to rock or move now. It's a double width, so it's 800 and something mil wide. Just simply because it makes for a good top, and it does mean that I can get two students working on either side of this bench. It's also 10 feet long, just over. It's like 10 foot and 2 inches. But we're just looking at the vices again. This is another slightly newer Record 52.5 quick release again. And that one's actually quite stiff at the minute because it's not been used for a long while. That will loosen up with use and wear. There you go. But they were cheap. I think they were £22 or £25 each out of a David Stanley auction. They were mega cheap, both of those vices. Plugs where I've got the coach bolts down through to hold the bench devices to the top. So I have just this morning, I did most of it the other day, but I have finished flattening it this morning. And I just clean it up with this little Norris. I think it's a 51. It's quite a late production plane. There's some stamps there, I think, from a previous owner. But yeah, quite a late production Norris, square parallel body, and I've just used that just to skim the surface up. And then I have actually gone in and done my least favourite thing with the Festool sander, which I really don't particularly rate. My old Bosch one I prefer. And what I've done is I've just taken some 80 grit paper to dull the surface with the sanding, because this red deal's brilliant timber, but it's very waxy. And because it's waxy, you tend to get a lot more slide than you normally would with a well-worn surface. So when this is new and freshly planed off the back of the Norris, the timber will skate on this waxy surface. And obviously I don't want that. I need to be able to hold my work still to be safe. Square cut aprons and square cut ends, and no wellboard. I absolutely detest benches with a wellboard. I grew up learning on a bench this width, same width as this, with a top this width and a top this width and a wellboard here, and I detested that bench with a passion, simply because this wellboard fills with shavings all the time. Excuse me guys, it's going to be a bit of noise for a minute. My father-in-law is roaring about on the forklift outside. Just let him go. So yeah, I don't like a wellboard, and I don't ever fit a wellboard now, because they just fill with shavings and stuff gets lost in them. I also don't like cupboards under a bench. You'll see none of my benches have cupboards under, because it's hard work. People keep telling me, well, that's a Nicholson bench, it's a this bench, it's a that bench. It's not. It's a joiner's bench. Nicholson and Ribot and Moxon, they weren't making these benches, they were just recording them. So yeah, it's a joiner's bench. And also I'm not keen on holes in the apron for dogs. It's not something I've ever got used to, and I have tried it on other benches in the past, and I just don't like it. I will drill the odd hole if I'm planning really long stock that lines up with the vise. But I do tend to use a batten or a clamped on batten, or a clamp to hold my workpiece. I do drill the tops. I don't set out and drill them straight away. I drill them as I use the bench for the use that I'm using them for. So probably we'll end up with 2 holes here and here somewhere, and this end, same on the other end, to act as a stop for dogs for stops. And then normally I end up with a line of holes somewhere down the centre to catch my bench dogs. But other than that, I don't over drill the benches. I use what I use. I drilled that one there on a pattern, because I'd watched various instructional videos, and that's what they said you did. And to be honest, they just fill with shit, and yeah, I don't like it. I'm not keen on it. So I will drill this bench. I'm yet to decide what I'm going to use on this bench, which is the other reason I haven't drilled any holes, because I've got an old-fashioned Woden hold down, which may end up in this bench. So we may end up with some 25mm holes for that, and some 20mm holes for my standard bench dogs. I tend to use Veritas round dogs with the spring. They seem to be the best available to me. They seem to be what's there and what's out there. I currently have 4, so they're all tied up on that bench and that bench. So I'll probably need to buy 4 more for this bench, because I'll need 2 at that end and 2 at this end. So at some point I'll need to invest in some dogs for this bench. But this is now set up ready for students and myself to use. I've got a beginner's course at the end of the month, a weekend course, and this is why this has been sorted out, because I can have 2 students working on this bench, 2 students working on that bench, and 1 student working on that bench, which gives me 5 bench spaces, 5 vices, and I can work in a really comfortable, safe manner, and so can the students. So yeah, that's it for now, guys. Just wanted to sort of show you that and show you what I was doing. If I stand back a bit, you might just be able to see the whole thing in shot. There you go. One English pattern, what I would consider an English pattern joiners bench, or my take on an English pattern joiners bench, ready for use. See you on the next one, guys. Bye.